right, welcome back to Blue by the Numbers. I'm Tanner, joined by Brian. It is September 17th, and I'm one-to-one copying Justin's intro on a normal podcast because I don't want to come up with anything. But Brian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really good, man. It's 2-1, ready for a really big week this week and living well. How about you?
I'm good, man. You know, I just am jealous of your Augusta National quarters. That is fantastic.
It's a great trip. Anyone that gets a chance to go do it. It's very fun.
If I go, you're gonna know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna raid the pro shop. But yeah, as you mentioned, Michigan's 2-1, 28-18 over Arkansas State. You know, the box score watchers were having a field day until you realize that, hey, Michigan was up 28-3 with about 6 minutes left. Some younger guys, you had some issues defensively. There was a penalty that extended a drive that would have ended the game on a 4th down on a roughing the passer. So, hey, look, it doesn't look pretty. I took some good away from it. I took some bad. But Brian, I think, you know, we talked about this, Justin and myself, on our most recent Blue by 90 podcast, that we kind of spoke through the quarterback situation. So I'm not going to really add anything to it, but I'd love to know your thoughts. What vibes are you feeling after the change and everything that's kind of happened over the last couple of days?
Well, I think, the one thing I was troubled with was hearing that when many players found out about it via the media, not the coaching staff. So that was a little disappointing. What we're doing right now is not working great. As anyone that's listened to us the last couple of weeks, I've been a fan of Davis Warren, not of his complete game, but he's a very accurate passer when he has time and a clean pocket. And those issues don't seem to be going away. I think one of the benefits of going to Orji is he allows us to get back to Michigan complementary football. I think, part of the stress that's been on this defense is we got on the field a lot more. And so by running the ball and kind of ball control, I think we can kind of go back to a little bit, more controlling time of possession, limiting our opponent's possessions. And hey, we heard all offseason that Orji was the guy. And so, and the reason that allegedly Davis Warren got the gig was because he protected the ball and, leading the conference in turnovers through the first 3 games. If he can't do that, then let's go to the more dynamic guy. So we'll see. I don't think any of us have been super thrilled with the product we've seen so far. So I'm eager to see what he can bring. And the last thing I'll say about it is Jim Harbaugh would have never told the media on Tuesday or Monday or Sunday that who our starter was going to be. He'd have let the opponent figure that out. And with a really big game coming in, I think some of the inexperience of Coach Moore showed through of, telling the media before the team and telling the media at all. There was no reason to tell the media of that. But
yeah, I thought it was interesting. I know that, I saw a couple of people mention that Michigan doesn't meet until after Sherrone Moore meets with the media. But to your point, there was no reason to share that information. So that was I talked about it a lot yesterday on our podcast. So if anybody, I doubt, but if you do want to know my thoughts, feel free to go check that out. But yeah, man, let's talk through the Arkansas State game. Let's break it down a little bit. What were some of the key positives you saw? And I want to get your take on Warren. I know we just talked about it, but I want to know what you thought of the quarterbacks, because you can't really do this, right? But outside the 3 picks, looked pretty good. He had a nice throw up the seam. He made some throws across the field to Freddie Moore. Frederick Moore has to play more. I think that's just point blank.
Yeah, I think I have a new, under the radar favorite player. I seem to have one every year, and it's CJ Charleston. That guy is just a willing blocker. He led the team in snaps played by a wide receiver, and watching the tape the second time, he puts his head down and makes some blocks. So that was a huge positive for me. But to answer your specific question, you can't take away the picks, right? He throws such a pretty ball. There's plays where it's is that JJ in there? When he's decisive, puts his foot in the ground and delivers the pass, he looks really, really good. He also panics a little bit with inexperience. I think, as we've said the last couple of weeks, this team's put him in situations. I counted at least 3 times where, he turned to hand the ball off to Donovan Edwards, and Donovan Edwards ran behind his back, and they were play fakes. So he was expecting to go to the left because that's where he thought the blocking assignment was. So obviously Donovan missed the blocking assignment. We looked foolish. And so, and some of our offensive linemen haven't done him any favors. So I feel bad for for Warren, because I call him Donovan Warren, Davis Warren, because I don't think he's had the line protection that we've been accustomed to in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been great, and you can tell that internal clock is speeding up every game, right? And can't make those throws, but that first pick, I mean, he's got 3 defenders running at him. Right side of the line continues to be a sore spot, unfortunately. But I just find it really curious. I mean, you look at Davis Warren plays 47 snaps, 20 passes, 27 runs. Alex Orji plays 17 snaps, 5 passes, 12 runs. Like, I don't want to continue to get into the quarterback discourse, but I don't understand. And this we'll parlay this into the running backs too. Like, I don't really understand some of the decision making as far as when you have certain guys on the field, some of the play calls that are happening. Alex Orji, I'll just say this. If there was ever a chance that you were going to turn to him to be the starting quarterback this season, he needs game reps, right? Like, everybody, saw the deep shot that he misses, right? Like, what does that look like if he actually threw the ball downfield against Fresno State and had an opportunity to kind of, get some game reps, right? Because a lot of his action when he plays in games has been running. His first 2 years, he would come in and do the Orgy Cat, and then spring game and practices. So I don't understand, why if you had any inkling that, hey, we're going to go with Alex Orji against USC, why are you not throwing the ball every single time? You're up 28-3, right? He comes in, he leads his touchdown drive, which he looked really good on, go up 28-3, and then he's just running the ball in the fourth quarter. I cannot wrap my brain around why they would not allow him to throw the ball and get some live reps.
I thought about that, and I was trying to think of a good comparison, and people will kill me, and I want to kill myself for what I'm about to say. But think of Tim Tebow's freshman year. All he was the gadget guy that came in for Chris Leak and put his head down and ran over people, much like Orji. And everyone wondered, could he pass the ball? And then once he got time to have, full game reps and put in situations where passing plays were necessary and dictated, we saw who he was. No, I am not saying that Alex Orji is going to be Tim Tebow, or that I even partially think that's possible, because I don't. But, when you come in and you're given a certain set of plays and clearly a very limited scheme when he's been in there so far, this week he's going to have a full playbook. He's going to get all the first team reps, and we'll see, him roll out some different stuff and see if he can actually do everything we've heard in camp and what, Coach Moore and Coach Campbell have told us, that he's a really good passer. And, I listened to Freddie Moore post game, and, he's saying how that they've connected on those passes several times, and that, that they'll do that this week. So, we can just choose to be really optimistic, I guess. But, I'm skeptical as the next guy, but I think he hasn't been given a fair shake yet.
Yeah. So we'll stop talking about the quarterbacks.
We said we were going to talk about it. 8 minutes in, we've talked about it. Right?
That's that's the most pressing thing in
it is.
The Michigan spaces right now. Running back. I thought, look, the stat line is a little bit different, but I thought Donovan Edwards played really well. I thought he found gaps. He found the hole. He was decisive. He was running guys over. Now, look, it's Arkansas State, but it was just nice to see Donovan Edwards, play the way that we know he can play. And so I was excited to see Donovan play well. Still think they should just line him up slot receiver and see what they've got, because Kalel Mullings, 20 snaps, 15 carries for $150 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, you put him in number 2, you give him some turf tape, I mean, I'm just saying, Brian, his first touchdown, you watch that play, he splits 2 defenders, runs through an arm tackle, and is off to the races. And he doesn't have that breakaway speed that, he's going to house it like Donovan Edwards might, or even 2021 Blake Corum. But man, he's just a savant at finding extra yards, falling forward. They run the 3rd and 1 wedge. He just jumps over for 5 yards. It's just, it has to be 20, right? It's got to be Kalel. And again, Donovan Edwards can help Michigan win games, but it's got to be in a unique way. It can't just be running off center in between the tackles and just punishing Donovan Edwards over and over and over again, because Kalel Mullings is going to get more yards out of those same situations. So you need to find a way to incorporate Donovan Edwards but they got to be more creative. So, what'd you think of the running backs? Ben Hall also looked really good again. I mean, I feel good with Hall and Mullings. If those are the two in my hypothetical where you put Donovan at receiver, like I feel like they can carry the load for sure.
Yeah, I thought Ben Hall, every time he's got an opportunity, he looks really good. I mean, he looks more like a Corum clone. Like he went to the Blake Corum school of running back, and he's looked really good. He's decisive. He sets up the blocks really well. He'll work towards one hole, try to sell that hole, and then make the move to the hole that the play's intended to go to. And he does that much better than even Mullings or Edwards. I think Edwards had a really strong game. He at putting on that extra weight this offseason, he had a couple plays where he ran over guys. You alluded to the fact that it's Arkansas State, but that's something that we really haven't seen. I do think he's best suited for more of a third down option, or whether it's a slot receiver or not. I do like his size. I feel like he's taken a step back in his blocking abilities and blocking responsibilities. I think he's got a lot going on. I also think when it comes to him, he's got a lot going on upstairs, and I think having a game like he had on Saturday will pay dividends because he made some good decisions. He's graded out well. The coaches have been very supportive. Although if you listen closely to the words that Sherrone Moore said, he acknowledged for the first time you were mentioning, and that is that this team's got to run through number 20. He was very subtly, if you listened closely to what he said, he for the first time acknowledged that it's time to make Mullings the featured back. At least that's what I heard. And so I'm excited about that because I said going into one of the predictions I made was that Mullings would lead the team in rushing touchdowns because I just thought he's a better suited for this offense all along. And so I'm excited to see the game this weekend. I'm as nervous as can be because of the product we've seen, but with him and Hall and Orji, I think that they can do some dynamic things in the run game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, we talked about receivers. CJ Charleston, he's not a big guy, right? And he did have a play where he got blown up on trying to block. But, man, just the effort and the ability and the want-to stay with your guy was really impressive to me. I thought he definitely earned some snaps. But, again, the guy, and PFF backs me up here. And I'll use PFF when it backs my narrative. And when I disagree, I'll let you know. But Freddie Moore was the highest-graded receiver on 25 snaps, and he was open. He was getting open. Like he looked like the most wide receiver guy that Michigan has right now, and he looks like he can run routes. And Jake Butt called out that it looked like he slowed up on that post route that Orji missed. I guess I could see it. I don't know if it would have made a difference necessarily, but that's 2 times, right? We talked about post Fresno State, Tyler Morris slowing up on that out and up. So, but I thought Freddie Moore, looked really good. And, if they could find a way for him to continue to get involved in the offense and be kind of a safety blanket as far as wide receivers go, we know who the number 1 option is on this team in the passing game. But I thought Freddie Moore looked really good, man. I was really encouraged by his play. And, obviously Tyler Morris was out, so some other guys got some run. But, man, it just seems like, I guess as I'm looking at it, like Amarian Walker got 3 snaps. It's basically everybody else. Charleston, Bell, Morgan, O'Leary, and Amarian Walker now getting three snaps. So what did you think of the receivers? I just wanted to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with much of what you said. I think I've always thought Frederick Moore, since like game 5 of last year, he started showing flashes that he looked like he could be a guy that could be a really good dynamic player. And I think we were all really shocked to see Peyton O'Leary run out the first snap of the season, and then the limited amount of snaps that he's gotten the first 3 games. But I was really happy to see him get this many snaps this last game and then contribute, because I agree with you. I feel like he's the most dynamic. As excited as I am about the potential of Kendrick Bell, and we keep hearing that Amarian Walker is this freak athlete, but we've yet to see anything that's proof positive of that. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I think what I'm most excited about with Orji is that I feel like they can get really creative with him. They're going to be forced to. And some of the schemes they played against Arkansas State, some of the counter trey stuff they did, some of the shades of the USC offense that they ran in misdirection, to get Samaj involved, because he's so dynamic. And some of the best plays we had last year was when he got involved in the pass and the run game. And he just hasn't had a presence this year. And so I'm hopeful that with Orgy and the play calling that they're going to have to switch up a little bit, that he'll get more involved. And if that happens, I think we can be pretty dynamic on offense. It'll just look different.
I mean, so we talked about this, and the thing with that for me is that should have been the plan all along. Mm-hmm. From the moment you realized that you were not getting a quarterback in the portal, it should have been built around Orgy, and you should have built an offense that takes advantage of his skill set. And that offense looks a lot different than what they're running right now. So to your point about optimism, take it back a few minutes here. I'm with you. Like, I'm very skeptical on what I think it can work, right? But do you have enough install time to do what needed to be done for the last 8 months? I'm not sure. But I digress. I thought the tight ends, Colson Loveland was playing out of his mind again. He gets hurt. I feel like it seems like he's going to be okay. Like, if that's Ohio State, like, he's playing, you know? But
I thought I read a quote just like an hour and a half ago that someone interviewed, his mom did an interview and said he's fine.
Yeah.
So, mom's usually a pretty good source.
Right. Maybe separating his shoulder, pop it back in. He's going to be a little sore, but he can play, right?
Yeah. Well, Jake Butt delivered, you mentioned Jake Butt earlier. He delivered one of maybe my favorite quote of the year about Max Bredesen as we're talking about tight ends, is him saying he blocks until the echo of the whistle. I think that's such an incredible quote. Like, watching him do his thing is great. He
was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It was phenomenal.
Tight ends was our best game, no doubt, for the tight ends.
Yeah, I thought Marlon Klein looked good. I mean, you could tell he's not Loveland, right? There was kind of like a slip screen to him where, you think if that's Loveland, he's probably able to, maybe get 6-7 yards. I think Klein got 3 or 4. But I thought he looked good. He had that seam route where they caught Arkansas State offside, and Warren placed a beautiful ball to him, and he comes down with it. And then the true freshman Hogan Hansen from the state of Washington, big time recruit, gets his first career catch and touchdown. So was loving to see that. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but he ran towards the defender at the goal line. Like, he was looking for some contact. So I always love that in a tight end. But Bredesen, stud, gotta keep him involved in the offense. He played 35 snaps, which I'm very happy about. What I'm not happy about is that it's 30 runs and 5 passes. Like, there's got to be some sort of way to utilize him on the field and be able to play off of that tendency that Michigan has to only run the ball when he's on the field. Like, we know he can catch. We saw him at tight end in 2022. I think that was his redshirt freshman year. He catches that pass from Davis Warren against Hawaii in 2022, second game of the year. And, he runs with it for a long ways. I want to see him be involved in ways that can get him the ball and make him part of the offense versus just being a blocker, because he's a damn good blocker. But if you can key on that as a defense and hey, 30 out of 35, they're going to run the ball, that fits your hand quite a bit.
It does. One wrinkle that they've been running more this year is that false pull where the backside guard and the fullback kind of goes one direction. So just for this example, everyone's going to the right, and then they leak out either Loveland or Samaj. That type of dynamic play with Orgy, they're going to have to respect that play action so much more, because could it be the running back? Could it be the quarterback? Yes. And to leak Bredesen out, I mean, I think that, and if it's not Bredesen, he just feature him more to help sell that run concept to the defense and leak out Samaj or any of the quick guys, or slot receiver Donovan Edwards, leak him out and do some fun stuff there. So I gotta think, the guys on that staff are a lot more creative than we are. So hopefully we see some good stuff. And you know what? I will say this. We were completely outmatched by Texas, like from the jump, right? Out-coached, out-schemed, outmatched. USC, I don't think that's the case. And last year, I felt like many of these same coaches pulled out their best stuff in our biggest games. And this is, you can say all you want about Texas, but it is a non-conference game. This game for our season is a much bigger game. Like, maybe not as big on the national landscape, and not as big now because Michigan has lost. But this is a conference game now, which is still weird to say. But this is the game they should have been holding stuff for and planning for and prepping to bring out the creative stuff. So I'm hoping we'll see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's to your point, the Texas game, you get into a hole and penalties and turnovers, and so that's the one thing they cannot do in this game. But again, we're talking through the Arkansas State game. I'm fired up for the USC game, man. It's Michigan USC. Like, come on. As a kid, I just thought, oh yeah, they always play in the Rose Bowl, because it happened quite a bit, at least in my memory. I mean, 03, 06. I guess it didn't happen much after that, but as a kid, it happens twice. You're like, wow, it happens a billion times.
They've played
So
10 times in the history of the two programs. 8 of them have been in the Rose Bowl. So you're not off.
yeah, yeah.
USC has only been to Ann Arbor once, and that was in 1958, and Michigan won. So they're undefeated against USC.
Okay,
in the
history
big
is on
house.
our side. You know.
So you're
O-line. I really just want to talk about center. I mean,
Sure.
we talked about right tackle. I don't want to continue to just, I mean, again, we talked about it. It's not the kid's fault, man, that they didn't have another guy ready. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman. He's not supposed to be ready. Most guys are not ready in their second year of college football to play right tackle in the Big Ten, right? So I don't want to talk about that too much. Dominic Giudice, Greg Crippen, they're continuing to move some guys around. These guys are getting reps here and there. It's very interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen this at the center position, at least not that I can recall. So if anybody wants to correct me on that, please do. I thought Crippen, both these guys graded out very similarly on PFF. And I know that Sharon mentioned their own grading system where, they have their staffers and stuff graded after the game. I was very close. I just thought from the naked eye that when Crippen was in the game, I mean, they scored 2 touchdowns. They had 2 long touchdown drives. I thought the offense moved very well. I don't know. And then they had Giudice come in at right guard for El Hadi, which is interesting. I thought El Hadi had a couple mishaps on assignments, but he graded out the highest on PFF. So it's interesting. I mean, I have not gone back and watched this game. I should. It's what we do. I need to be better about it. I've watched the cut-ups, but I just thought the offense flowed a lot better when Crippen was in the game. And
that's the consensus, dude. I think that most people watching thought that. The PFF grade, I was surprised to see it so close because it seemed like, and everything that I've watched and consumed the last few days, seems to be the consensus that, that people agree that, hey, to what you're saying is that we move the ball better, that we looked more of a cohesive unit with him out here. I heard from, one of the guys that I talked to that Crippen's getting most of the work this week with the number ones and that he expects Crippen to start. So,
insider info, Brian.
Insider, so that's my guy that's usually been pretty darn reliable on information. So,
okay. That's intriguing, man. Like,
yeah, I think you can count on him being the starter this week, but
I just wonder, Adrian Gentry gets 14 snaps. I don't know if all of them, but I think most of them were as the 6-0 line, the jumbo tight end.
The Trente Jones package.
Yeah. Man, it's like you would think. I don't know. It's been so poor in games. You would think that it must not be close in practice for Link to continue to be the right tackle. I don't know. I really do not understand. And again, I think Evan Link can be a really good football player, but I think you're just kind of thrown in the fire right now, and you might be killing the kid's confidence, right? Like, because if you start him as a 4th-year guy, he might be a stud because he's fully developed. He's a grown-ass man. Versus right now, he's a 19-year-old sophomore, right? Like,
you know what?
I don't know.
I haven't seen many interviews with him, but I do know young people his age. Who knows? That guy could think he's the greatest right tackle in the history of football. Like, he could be convincing himself.
Of course. Yeah,
you know what I mean? So, like, shaking his confidence. The one thing that's like a quarterback has to stand in the press conference, take all the heat. I mean, as much as we've talked about the right tackle position, it's not like the buzz of every headline like our quarterbacks have been. He could be, I have no idea. I've not heard one thing about his attitude and his mindset, but, I'm less worried about rattling his confidence. Particularly the staff has at least publicly been very supportive of this,
I just mean like in the game.
I know what you're saying.
Like,
I know.
You can't, like, it's not great, right? Like, your quarterback's getting killed. He's throwing picks because he's got pressure. He's throwing pick because his arm gets hit on your defender. I don't know, man.
It's been rough. It's been rough.
It's not been great. It's not been great at all. That's going to be for the offense. I think we're probably going to spend more time on the offense because, defensively, I thought outside of that first drive where there were some penalties, Quentin Johnson, I think, was a 2019 or 2020 recruit. So he's a 5th-year senior at the youngest. Why are you late hitting the quarterback on 3rd and 20? It would have been 4th and 12. I just – those are the things that frustrate me. And I know, look, Sharon's taken over and But these are guys that were last year the #1 team or tied for first for penalties against in the country. And they were also #1 in turnover margin. It's really frustrating to see guys that we know can play disciplined, sound, fundamentally sound, technically sound football, just making boneheaded decisions and plays that are costing the team. And, luckily the Arkansas State kicker missed the field goal. Dominic Zavada, I mean, that guy, he cost Arkansas State at least 6 points, right? I mean, come on.
Right.
I mean, 4 extra points in the 6 from the 2 field goals. It's a 10-point game. He's the key differentiator here.
Right.
But no, I thought the defense outside of that, though, they locked down. I mean, they were dominant. Arkansas State really wanted to throw the ball. They didn't have much success running at all. So you didn't hear, Mason Graham, Kendrick Grant get their names called. The one thing I would pinpoint and maybe nitpick, not very much pressure, which was disappointing.
Well, it's funny you say that because I wanted to get your opinion on this. Last year during the national title run, we blitzed 29% of the time, which was right in the national average. I think we averaged 48th in the country, 49th in the country in blitz percentage. This year we're blitzing 49% of the time, 48% of the time, and are 4th in the country in blitz pressures. Percent of times we're blitzing. And so my question to you is, do we think we're doing that because Wink is just stubborn and thinks that's, I'm going to be the pressure guy? Does he think that his defensive backs can't hold up for that long? And regardless of the reason, the fact that we aren't sensing a lot of pressure with the amount of blitzing that we're doing is a little troublesome.
Yeah, well, the one that I saw people talk about was Jayshon Barham they're running a stunt. Yeah. So Jayshon Barham's job is to get in, just get into the guard. Well, it's a free lane. And so he comes around, instead of going at the quarterback, and they ended up converting, I think, a 3rd and long. He just goes right into the guard. And it's like, dude, you're not coached to abort that. Like, there's a lot of weird things.
It looked like a video game glitch a little bit.
Right. I'm like, I was watching, I was like,
what happened?
Well, I kind of just brushed it off because I was like, I don't know what happened.
Right.
But then when you watch and you see what the defensive linemen are doing, it's very clearly a stunt. And I'm like, dude, if you got to abort the stunt, if you've got to, you are fast, you get downhill quick, just go hit the quarterback, right? Like, go get after him. Instead, he's got more time. He scrambles, throws on the run for a 1st down. So yeah, I mean, again, they lock down, but there's still some things that I'm seeing where I don't understand. And to your point about, I hate that stat. I mean, I don't know,
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm not going to shoot the messenger, but if you think you can't get pressure with Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore, TJ Guy, Rayshawn Benny, I mean, I'm all for, bringing a backer and dropping a guy, like being exotic the way they have in the past. But the amount of times I see just like 5 and sometimes even 6-man pressure and blitzes is absurd. Like, you don't see that. Yeah. And I think if you're not getting home, you're putting your back 5 in a terrible position. And you try that against a guy like Quinn Ewers. We saw what happened. He's going to dice you up.
Pretty darn good too,
right? So he's a redshirt sophomore, so he's been in the program for a few years now, and played behind Caleb Williams, and very clearly showed what you do against LSU. Now LSU, look, a lot of people are still kind of hyping that one up. I don't know. They didn't look that great against South Carolina. South Carolina should have won that game. Terrible officiating, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. USC is obviously it's always a good program. I mean, they've had some down years. We're no strangers to that. So I feel like it's going to be, again, just an awesome uniform matchup, by the way, USC, Michigan. Let me get your thoughts on this, Brian, because I think, again, the defense, like, there's not really much more to add for me, at least. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, but
I have a couple of things, but let's talk about the uniforms.
I just want to make this point. I want to see blue tops and maize pants. The big game blues, I get it.
Sorry.
I know they're cool. Michigan won the national championship, but they beat Ohio State in them. I understand. But when you're like, look, I'm with it. But when you're playing USC, Texas, and Ohio State, like the Ohio State-Michigan uniform matchup is always incredible to me. Just give me the traditional home uniforms. I digress. So let's talk about the defense a little bit more. There's our, fashion talk for the week.
One of these days, I'm gonna have to tell my uniform Connor Stallion story because I've not shared that yet. It's a pretty good one. For another time, I thought the defense in general. I thought Grant and Graham played their most well-rounded game that we expect to see from them. They were kind of set up in the middle, holding down the fort there, versus some of the schemes we saw where they were coming, not Grant as much, but they had Graham coming on the edges more. I like to see them more. I really like to see how many people they rotate in there. I thought the defensive tackles had their best game. And aside from a couple of plays, like the one you mentioned with Barium, I thought the linebackers showed up. They've kind of been invisible a little bit at times. I think they showed up. And the only other thing that stood out to me was Amir Hall has got to be the starting quarterback opposite Will. He's ascending. He's got a ton of experience, obviously at a lower level, but every time he's in there, he looks good. And Jair Hill just seems to be
he's all over the place.
All over the place.
Clearly a ton of talent.
Pollard, all due respect to him and his family, that guy just, when he gets out there, bad things happen for this football team.
That one stinks, man, because I really liked his high school film. I thought, Brian, I thought he was he's lengthy. I thought that he was a kid that was just another gem that they found. And Fresno State, when he was on the field, targeted him immediately. They targeted him on the touchdown. Their first touchdown of the game. Amir Hall, just to talk about the starting position. Jair Hill just clearly a very talented kid, right? Physically, he's got great athleticism. He's lengthy, he's lanky, he's rangy. It's just, I don't know, it's just not clicking, especially when they're in zone defense. And man, too, I guess, because he just gets his hips turned around and then he's just completely out of the play. We saw that against Texas. We saw it against Arkansas State. So to your point, might be, the best for Jair Hill to just have Amir Hall out there and just let him watch and kind of learn from the sideline, because he's going to be a kid. I'll say the same thing I say about Donovan. He can help you win games, but he's just got to, be in the right position at the right time. And so that's going to be a coaching thing. And that's really going to test Lamar Morgan's chops, right? We know what he is as a recruiter. What is it like when you're, big time recruit as a sophomore is just struggling, right? You're struggling to just on the field, you're struggling to see the entire game. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what that looks like. I saw a stat from Makari Page, 0.0 passer rating when targeted. He's doing his thing.
Yeah, he's having a very, very good season. He's looking like made a really good decision.
He's going to be draftable.
Serious money by coming back. So
yeah, he's going to be draftable. And man, it's just really, really hard not to think about what if with Rod Moore. And number 9 was on this defense, man.
He cleans up a lot of stuff.
He absolutely would. I think his leadership and his knowledge and his smarts would be so crucial for this defense. So hey, here's the thing. If Michigan can just continue to be in the playoff conversation, right? It starts with a win against USC. If they can do that and just be at a point where it makes sense for Rod Moore to come back, you might get him back, right? But you got to be in contention. He's not going to come back if Michigan's sitting here at 4-4, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen. Please, God. Please. But, Michigan's got to be in contention. You may see number 9 back out there. It's just That's the feeling I've got. So anything else you want to add, man? I know kind of a shorter episode, but wanted to just kind of quickly touch on Arkansas State and get ready for USC.
I feel like we're at such a pivot point. I don't think any of us know what we're going to see on Saturday, right? And so, to your point, it's an inflection, right? We're either find a way to win dirty or win great, and hey, here we go. We're back in contention to be in the Big Ten race, back in playoff contention. We lose this game, USC probably moves in the top 10. We're a team that's the only team in the country that's played 2 top teams in the country. But that doesn't matter, because if they're both losses, Vanderbilt loses every year to Georgia and Alabama. Does that make them a good football team? KBOA's compared us to Vanderbilt. But the point remains, it's a big point of the season, no doubt.
Well, 2012.
They're coming off the bye week, it's a tough game.
Yeah, well, Michigan in 2012 lost to Alabama, Notre Dame, Nebraska, and Ohio State, who were all top 10 teams. And that was the stat everyone loved to share. It's does that do anything for me? It wasn't fun.
No.
It wasn't fun. They were in most of those games. Probably should have beat Ohio State that year, to be honest, but just no points in the second half. I don't want to bring up bad memories, but my point is, to what you're saying, doesn't matter. It's if you've got 1 or 2 losses, yeah, I guess it matters, but just gonna, be off the tracks. Like,
That's one thing that we don't talk about much, but it's a huge recruiting weekend. They have just a ton of guys in this weekend. So, you want to show the big house rocking. I'll be very interested to see how the stripe out looks, by the way. Put on a good show for these recruits because they have a ton of their current class commits, guys that are uncommitted in 25, a ton of 2026 guys, bunch of top 100 guys. So that's we got to ramp up recruiting and bring more talent in there. One thing interesting to people that follow Total Team Talent, a lot of people subscribe to that. Michigan and USC are 15 and 16 and 247's Total Team Talent. So in terms of quote unquote talent or high school recruiting talent, you're looking at two teams very evenly matched.
Okay. Well,
it's going to
be a fun one. It's going to be a hot one. It's going to be in the 80s. Come check out the tailgate. Sun Cruiser, Truly, they hook it up. North Peak Brewing. I unfortunately will not be there. I've got a wedding to attend, and the bride is a Michigan fan, and she scheduled it when it was a bye week, so that's not on her. It's really tough, get your deposit back, all those sorts of things. But her dad, my uncle, when I got married, was Michigan Rutgers at night in 22, and he found a way to watch that. So I told him, hey, I'm going to find a way to watch the game at your daughter's wedding. And this was a little bigger than Michigan Rutgers. This is Michigan USC. This is, Michigan wins this game, they're back in the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Like you change the narrative, you flip the narrative on its head. I saw Ohio State's 19.5 point favorites, which, feels crazy. Maybe Vegas has something there. But this flips that narrative, right? And you start to talk about Michigan in a different light. If they go out there and they look good and win this game, you've got the home field advantage. You should be pissed off coming off the Texas game. You finish in a sloppy way against Arkansas State. Like, these guys should be ready to roll, right? And to clean up the mistakes and to get into the big house, touch that banner, and let's go play some Michigan football. Let's kick some ass. Like, that should be the mentality.
No doubt.
They got to come to Ann Arbor. They got to come to the big house, and they've got to play their first ever Big Ten game, right? Like, all we talked about all offseason was, can they handle the run? Can they handle the run? Let's see if they can.
Right.
I want Kalel Mullings with 30-plus carries, by the way. Like, that's where I'm at. I want him and Orji 45 carries combined, honestly, right? Like, sprinkle in the pass where we need to, but, like, hell, run a wing tee. I don't know. Like,
Penn State
on the field every game, every play.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, hey, we appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter at Blue by 90, Instagram, Facebook, all socials. BlueBy90.com for written content. YouTube, Blue by 90, Apple, Spotify, Blue by 90 for podcasts. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.